All right, we'll give David another warm round of applause. And with that said, David, you may begin whenever you're ready.
It was all started by a mouse. This famous quote was a favorite by Walt Disney. He went on to make a company that is internationally recognized and all started with a simple whistling mouse. The company today is at the forefront of innovation in many different fields. When you think of Disney, you think of the cartoons, the parks, the films, and of course of magic and of fun. As a Disney cast member myself, I have the privilege of working at a place where I bring smiles to people's faces every day. I have seen firsthand some of the creative innovations that they use behind Disney. I'd like to share with you some of the Disney company's most innovative moments throughout history. We'll begin by talking about how Disney got started and where it is today. We'll then go on and talk about some of the innovations in film and art. And finally, we'll look at the parks briefly for some of their creative ideas. Let's start with a brief history of animation before Walt Disney. Most of the cartoons back then were merely shorts from newspaper comics. They had no personality or plot, and they only used gags. They were all silent and were usually just used for putting in between major motion pictures. According to Bob Thomas's book, The Art of Animation, Felix the Cat was the most popular character at this time because of his ability to pantomime and to mimic Charlie Chaplin. However, these silent era characters could not survive the innovation of the Disney brothers. In 1923, Walt Disney and Roy Disney came to California with the dream of building a Hollywood studio. Their first character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, unfortunately had its rights taken away by Universal, who had distributed it, and they lost not only their character, but also half their animation staff. So Disney knew that he needed to make up a new character. He created Mickey Mouse, which he originally called Mortimer, and his wife decided Mickey was a better name. According to ESPN.com News, Oswald was recently regained by Disney in 2006. After the success of Mickey Mouse, he went on to make the Silly Symphonies, which was one way of making sure that they didn't rely on the success of a single character. In 1934, Disney set his goals for the highest yet, with the creation of the first full-length animated movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It took over 3 years to make and went way over budget, and the critics often scoffed at it, saying no one would want to sit through a film that long, all animated. It was a humongous hit. It made $8 million back in a time when the average ticket price was 23 cents, 10 cents for kids. He went on to release 4 more films until World War II broke out. Thanks to the war, they had to halt animation production and focus mainly on war propaganda as well as training videos. This put them back into debt, and they would struggle for many years until Peter Pan finally made a profit again. The last film that Disney himself worked on was Jungle Book, which was released in '67, 1 year after his own death. By 1989, they released Little Mermaid and finally hit a stride with one hit after another. Today, they've released 50 animated films, the latest being Tangled. This movie was 6 years in production and is the most expensive animation in history, with a budget of $260 million. With each success came expansion. According to the Disney corporate website, they own over 10 studios, 8 resorts, dozens of networks, including ABC and the History Channel, and hundreds of stores around the world. And in 2009, they had acquired Marvel for $4 billion. All the success was possible thanks to the innovation and creative thinking behind each project. Let's take a look at some of the innovations in film. When Mickey Mouse was first made, he wasn't anything particularly special, actually. He looked a lot like some of the other characters. In fact, Disney couldn't find any backers to support him. So he went to his brother Roy and said, let's add sound. Now this was a new concept in film back then. It was only just getting started, and never been tried in animation before. So they devised a system with a very tight budget to synchronize music and sound. They were also the first in history to use storyboards, which is now industry standard in animation and film. In November of 1928, they released Steamboat Willie. Mickey Mouse's main debut. They had crowds bigger than the movies, and within 3 years, Mickey Mouse was a national icon. A few years later, color was the next big thing, and Disney jumped right on that. He made a deal with Technicolor and developed the very first 3-color processing. In fact, he had to, according to DisneyShorts.org, he had to develop his own ink and paint so it wouldn't peel or chip on the sets. With Snow White came far more innovation to get the quality that he required. According to Times Online, Walt Disney was the first to use rotoscope for reference and accurate and realistic movement. He had invented the multi-plane camera. This 14-foot-tall monstrosity cost $70,000 to make and was actually the best technology at the time for creating multiple layers of animation in a single scene. Several years later, in the 60s, Disney had started to use Xerox technology, which had just come out. 101 Dalmatians was possible thanks to this until 1961. Without it, they never could have drawn 99 puppies with such a tight budget. In '95, Disney sponsored Pixar, who made Toy Story, and led the industry in CG animation. Eventually, Pixar actually joined Disney, and they continued to lead the way. According to Stephen Watts' Art and Politics in the American Century, Walt was not only a cartoonist, he was actually a leading artist in the modernist movement. Imagery of talking, singing, and dancing plants and animals, combined with fantastic romps through an imaginative playland, only to be followed by nightmarish scenes of kidnap and torture, such as in the short Mad Doctor in 1939, showed Walt's ability to portray contrasting elements of the modernist movement and show a full spectrum of emotion. His shorts were often hailed as masterpieces, a new art form. We've seen a glimpse of some of the innovations in the movies and films, but they have a lot in the real world. Let's briefly talk about the resorts, which have been thrilling fans for decades. In 1955, Disneyland opened in Anaheim, California. According to Michael Sorkin's See You in Disneyland, Walt's original idea was looking for a place for an entire family to go on vacation. He decided to create a fun, safe, clean place where people could see some of his ideals and dreams for the future. In order to fund Disneyland, he had to make a deal with the then independent ABC and created the Mickey Mouse Club for them. People loved the park so much that within 10 years it made $270 million. But Walt wanted more. He made Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, to permanently house residents in Florida. However, it didn't survive until, he didn't live long enough for it to be made, and they decided to change it into a park focusing on the future and World Fair, one of his other great ideas. Because he had died before Walt Disney World was created, they actually named it after him. His name is synonymous with future and technology, and soon after his death, rumors spread that still lingers that show that he was cremated, that he was cryogenically frozen and buried at the bottom of one of the briars. He's actually been cremated, and he rests in the Forest Lawn National Memorial Park in Glendale, California. We've looked at some of the hard work and originality that go into making Disney what it is today. From the creation of Mickey Mouse and some of the innovations that they have done in the animation industry, to the modern innovations that make Disney what it is today. Disney has an important role in families around the world. I'll leave you this thought. Remember that this company, which is today internationally recognized and one of the largest in the world, all started with something as small as a dream and a mouse.
Great. Well done. Definitely this